Speaking of making it, hello there, everyone. Welcome to Duel of the Takes. I think this is kind of a special episode. The first of this fucking weird format. I literally don't know what this is gonna look like. We were like, hey, we're gonna do this on camera for some reason. So, hello.
Two Duel of the Takes panelists are together.
Yeah.
And I guess all three of us are technically on vacation right now.
Yeah, no, it feels like this is to me, this is a celebration. I'm back in the house that I started this show in, we started this show in. It was a little over a year ago at the start of the pandemic. According to the President of the United States, the pandemic officially ended yesterday. There's a lot of things to celebrate. Our podcast is a little over a year old. The pandemic that started this podcast and put creatives in a spot where they had to make their own content from home and stuff like that. That happened a year ago, and it's with kind of sour news. I regret to inform you guys, our audience. It sounds like Jory is probably leaving the show indefinitely. So
Jory Wonder 2049 has ran away.
He's he's a good friend of the show. He'll continue, I'm sure, popping around, and I think if he wants a less permanent position, I think he's just going to be our resident tiebreaker. I don't know how we're going to work that out, but he's been complaining since the inception of the show that we don't have a system to fix the ties. Little did he know he was the solution we have. So we'll incorporate him. He's awesome.
We love
still
Jory.
Good friends. We're not leaving on sour terms or anything. I just think it's been a year. It's hard to stick with something when only 70 of you guys are listening. But thank you, all 70 of you. Mom, shout outs. Love that people are listening to this podcast. You guys rock.
But all this talk about years and time, very topical.
Yes. And Josh is wearing a Back to the Future shirt, so it all adds up.
It all connects.
We are talking about time travel movies today, which, personally, it's weird because we did the sci-fi bracket about a year ago, and there was an entire quadrant on there that were time travel movies. And then, even back then, I was like, we could do a whole bracket on just time travel movies. You forgot how many there are. We actually even made this just one per series. So it's like, we don't even have all three Back to the Futures on here. There's 70 time travel movies, at least.
And I think, I want to say we picked the best of the best, but there's some picks on here. We made it very...
There are the best of the best, but it's not all the best of the best.
Yeah.
It's a weird selection we got here. I think I like the way that this is seated, so let's just get started, shall we?
Yeah.
Up first, we've got Groundhog Day up against Palm Springs.
I feel like we're about to really shit on Palm Springs, and I don't hate that movie. No,
not at all.
I remember the hype going into that movie that this is kind of it was kind of like a passion project for Andy Samberg, and
yeah,
I really liked the cast. I think I saw it at a drive-in, actually. And I went in and it was fine. The first two acts, I was like, all right, this is pretty funny, pretty entertaining. And I think the movie kind of jumps the shark in the third act. And a lot of time travel movies struggle with this. I think we're going to see a pattern where they have a really weak third act. And I think Palm Springs is just one of the victims of that.
It rides its inspirations on its sleeve. The movie's pretty self-aware that it's just ripping off Groundhog Day, and I think that that's fine. But I love Andy Samberg. I love Aubrey Plaza. It's a good cast. It's a good little movie. J.K. Simmons is great in it as well. There's some good moments, but I don't think it's going to hold it.
About Andy Samberg and J.K. Simmons as a dynamic.
Yeah. That scene where he's just J.K. Simmons is just railing coke in the bathroom is actually hilarious. It's really good. I want to see that as the movie. J.K. Simmons should have been the main character, but no, I think it's a good movie, but come on, it's Groundhog Day here, no contest.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't have Palm Springs or some of these movies without Groundhog Day. It's
most likely not.
It's an essential time travel movie.
It's still getting redone in different ways. There's other movies on here that are just Groundhog Day, but this. And, it's kind of weird because it's not, it's time travel, sure, because it's just the same day over and over again. but I wouldn't necessarily say that's like, I don't know. It's like just time loop movies.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, up next, we've got Blast from the Past up against Forever Young, which this is a selection. Blast from the Past does not include time travel, by the way. It's just someone who was raised underground in a bunker comes to life in like the late 90s or whatever, and like rises to the surface. So he's kind of like he's from the past, but it's just because he's raised in a bunker.
Damn, he's Captain America.
Yo, Brendan Fraser as Captain America would have been Kino.
If 90s Avengers, he would have been the perfect Captain America.
Yeah, I feel like they would have they might have also done him for Thor back then. Like I feel like he was always cast as like the big muscly dude back in the day.
And with all that into play, I think I'm voting Blast from the Past.
Yeah, Forever Young's a fine little movie, but if you've seen 17 again, it's that, but before it's like, oh, I get to go back to being a younger version of myself. That's dope. The best thing about Forever Young is the Alphaville song that everyone knows from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah,
Blast from the Past is good. It's a pretty fun movie. Up next, we've got the third installment in two different franchises. We've got Men in Black 3 up against Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
I love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
So,
in a ironic sense, 100%.
I don't think mine's as ironic. I just love the movie.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3?
It's really bad. It's hard for me to watch now, but I've seen it at least 50 times since I was little.
Yeah,
so,
it was definitely one of the big like DVD movies as a kid. Yeah. I would watch.
It was like permanently in my portable DVD player.
But all three Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 is the one of the live-action Turtles movies from the 90s that I've seen the most, by a lot. I've only seen the first one a handful of times, and the second one, like, once. So the third one was just the one I had a copy of, and, I watched that a lot as a kid.
Yeah, like, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, I know we talked about where I have the scorching hot take that the original Ninja Turtles movie would be on my top 10, like, favorite, I guess, comic books, superhero movies ever. And I can't say the same about Ninja Turtles 3, but compared to MIB 3, I think that that MIB 3 is going to go down as one of the more underrated blockbusters of the 2010s.
Oh, yeah.
This movie's actually pretty good.
I feel like it's a hot take to say that Men in Black 3 is my favorite of the series, but both of these are my favorite of their series.
Yeah, but one of them's good.
Yeah, no, I think Men in Black 3, my biggest problem with it is I don't think the villain's all that strong, but the characters are so good. Josh Brolin kind of steals the movie, in my opinion, as a younger version of Tommy Lee Jones' character from the first two movies, and there's actually still a good amount of Tommy Lee Jones in the movie, too, so it's not like they just got rid of him, recasted him. Bringing time travel in with the alien Men in Black thing and embodying it in the 60s when it happened, I think Men in Black 3 is like the coolest thing you can do with that premise, and they take it back to when like Roswell and Woodstock and all that stuff's going on. Also, I think Bill Hader plays Andy Warhol in this movie.
Really?
Hang on, let me look that up. I'm pretty sure that's who plays Andy Warhol in this movie.
I'm trying to remember.
It threw me off the last time I watched
insane.
it. Yeah, Men in Black 3, Andy Warhol. Yeah, it's straight up Bill Hader. I knew it.
That's like one of the funniest scenes of the movie.
Yeah.
I love that scene. But I was watching it again, like, not terribly, like maybe a month or two ago, and I was like, wait, is that fucking Bill Hader?
The ending, like, gives you, like, kind of almost a tear, almost to a point of tears. It kind of it puts the whole trilogy and like just ties a nice bow around it.
Yeah, it bookends it perfectly. Like they could never do a Men in Black 4 with Tommy Lee Jones, who is like 87 now or whatever, and Will Smith. Like it's
done. That's why I appreciate the fourth one, is because they didn't try that.
I don't appreciate the fourth one because it didn't do anything.
It doesn't have to exist. But
remember when Sony was thinking about doing a 21 Jump Street MIB crossover, where they were going to become MIB agents?
I don't remember this happening.
It was going to be Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill starring in Men in Black, like kind of like a soft reboot, I guess.
When was this?
It was going to be 22 Jump Street 3 Men in Black. Like, it was wild. This was like 2015 or something. And
that would have been
it was going
to do it.
It was going to be Lord and Miller. It was like right after the first two movies. Yeah.
I think wasn't it supposed to be called it was supposed to be called that.
Huh.
I think that could have been cool. Like, I remember when that stuff was like rumored, I remember my friends weren't really into that, but I'm like, I don't know if you're going to continue those two franchises and like connect it to a property that was really big at that time. That was the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might have been called 51 Jump Street. Like Area 51. I think it was going to be called 51 Jump Street.
There's so much potential with that.
That would have worked really well.
I don't know if they would have crossed over with like Will Smith's Men in Black or Tommy Lee Jones. I doubt they would have done it. There probably would have been like a nod to it.
The difficult part for that would have been like the rating, because you can't tone back for a 21 Jump Street movie.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like Jonah Hill is funny enough where you could put him in that like kind of role, and then Channing Tatum will just bounce off of him like he did in the other two movies.
Yeah. All right. So all that said, are we just going with Men in Black 3 here?
It's Men in Black.
Yeah. It's the much better movie.
I agree.
Here we go.
All right. Up next, we've got a Nolan fight. Throwback to our Nolan ranking. We've got Tenet versus Interstellar. I mean, all of his movies have to do something with like the concept of time in one way or another, whether it's the way the story's being told or whether it's like a framing device or sometimes both, like in Memento. But in this, we're simply looking at the movies that have time travel in the plot. And Tenet versus Interstellar. This is interesting.
I've thought about this one a lot today. And like,
yeah, you've been talking about it all week.
When it comes to just the time traveling alone, I mean, Interstellar's probably a little more interesting of what actually happens, because you have them traveling through like space, and then they go to that planet with the big tsunami waves, and then they go back on the ship, and their friends age like 50 years or whatever.
Yeah,
each minute on that planet is like 7 years in real life or whatever. Right?
These are very, I guess for Tenet, it is a very interesting concept in the way that they travel through time. But in Interstellar, it's all like physics-based and how we theorize all of it would go. So it's like very different, because you've got complete fiction and then you've got something that could sort of happen.
My head doesn't hurt when not till like the third act of Interstellar. My head hurts after like the first 20 minutes of Tenet.
Yeah, I think like Interstellar's cool because it's like the most scientifically accurate portrayal of time travel that I think we've seen in a movie, in terms of like if we were able to travel through time, it would be traveling at the speed of light, so which, you're not aging because you're moving through the universe so quickly, and that's kind of what they show off in this movie, and the orbitation, the orbiting and the like rotation around a different sun or a different star, like,
or the black hole.
The science behind it's like, this is like theoretically how that would work until you get to the third act, then it's like we're trying to tell a narrative here, and with Tenet, it's just like, I think Will Smith actually like co-wrote this movie. I think he just said, yeah, it's rewind time, and that was Tenet. I like Tenet. I think it's more fun, but I think Interstellar's the better time travel movie in this context.
When you think about it, Tenet's kind of like a Groundhog Day if like they planned out in almost like a war type scenario. It's like a planned out battle version of Groundhog Day by the time you get to the third act.
I find it to be pretty simple, but also really complicated. And it's
overly complicated.
It's a fascinating film, but when it comes to time travel movies, it's Interstellar.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, so I know I said earlier we did one movie per franchise. I lied. Right here we've got Terminator versus Terminator 2. Now, I think that this is an interesting fight because, one, James Cameron is the best director of all time, and two, I think that Terminator was kind of like his first kind of go at things as a full creative control. And it's an awesome thriller. It's great. It works as both a horror movie and an action movie. It's a perfect sci-fi time travel thriller. But then the sequel is, I would say, the best action movie of the 90s and probably top 5 of all time.
Yeah, I love both of these movies, and I know I've said on the show before I'm a big Terminator 1 stan. I don't think this movie, it gets so much love, but I also don't think it gets enough because I think Terminator 2, rightfully so, overshadows it sometimes. Yeah. I just love the sci-fi horror element of Terminator 1. I think it's kind of the better sci-fi movie, and if it wasn't for my love for Star Wars, the first Terminator movie, I mean, it's right up there with Blade Runner and
Ex Machina.
Yeah. That would be my top sci-fi outside of the Star Wars franchise, which will always be number one in my heart. But it's tough because I want to say the first Terminator here when it comes to the time travel, because
it introduces it.
I can't say it's a bigger threat though, because the T-1000 in Terminator 2 is just it feels like an unstoppable force. Both feel like unstoppable forces, but the T-1000, it was how, even with Arnold, how are they going to stop this thing?
Yeah. I think, personally, the first movie is a better time travel movie for a similar reason to, the Interstellar argument. Time travel is so crucial to the plot of that movie because you have Chris Kyle, the American sniper, go back in time to to save Sarah Connor from the T-800. And then you have the T-800 going back to terminate Sarah Connor. But then you also have, this is how John Connor gets, conceived, essentially. That's actually the biggest part of the movie. If you're going beyond this first movie and what it is, the lore of that, John Connor becomes the savior for that resistance and the battle of the machines. So it's it goes back full circle and it's all centered around time travel. Whereas the second one, it's we have to change the past so that way Doomsday doesn't happen, the Judgment Day doesn't happen. They're stopping an apocalypse essentially instead of just trying to stop someone from being born, which to me is way more butterfly effect, way more time travel. That's how I'm looking at it here.
Yeah, and I know it's not T2's fault, Terminator 2's fault, but the lore after Terminator 2 has been so bad, even though it should have just ended with Terminator 2. They stopped Skynet. That should have been the end of the franchise, and then do some extended lore after that. There shouldn't have been a Terminator 3 or a Genesis, Dark Fate, whatever. Salvation was fine because it's a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it comes to time travel, Terminator 1, it feels so small, but it's cut so perfectly, and it just goes boom boom boom, gives you twist on the way. The journey through that movie might be not as fulfilling as the reward of Terminator 2, but I think the journey outweighs the destination in this scenario.
Yeah, and I think too in the pacing department, the first Terminator movie is 90 minutes. It's 93 minutes or something. It just moves along at a breakneck speed. It's from one set piece to another. You get a little bit with the characters and them kind of growing or whatever through the course of the story. But then Terminator 2 is a 2.5 hour long epic. That movie is long.
Yeah.
There's so many, everyone remembers the first hour because it's you got John Connor with his weird ass haircut going around on his dirt bike, and then he meets the two robots, and then it's that's cool. But then it's then they break the mom out of the psych ward. Then they go and they try to kill Miles Davis, and then Miles Davis. Anyway, it rocks. Miles Dyson. Sorry about that. Terminator 1. We've got Source Code up against Edge of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Edge of Tomorrow, same director as Jumper.
Doug Liman, dude. He's a legend.
Or Live, Die, Repeat.
Legend. Doug Liman, if you're watching, 1, why? 2, you want to come on our show? We'll watch Chaos Walking with you.
Can we rank his movies?
I think Edge of Tomorrow would be pretty high up there. Groundhog Day, but it's a Halo movie. Yeah,
I think it's one of his. It's probably his best movie. I mean, I think Edge of Tomorrow is a really good movie. When it came out, it got really hyped up by like people who were like, this is like so underrated, and now it's kind of become overrated. But I still think I still remember like watching that movie and wanting to like show my friends this. I'm like, no, this is really cool. We don't have to watch another Marvel movie right now. Let's watch something different.
It was genuinely a unique blockbuster. Like, we don't really get things like that. Yeah. I think it's technically based off of a graphic novel or like a manga or something. But it feels enough like its own thing. It's not tied to these characters that everyone knows. And yeah, to me, it feels like in the early 2000s, or I guess this was 2014, so I guess like early to mid 2000s, we got original like sci-fi movies like that came out. Like you had Avatar, you had District 9, you had like these movies were like, oh, this doesn't have to be tied to a cinematic universe. And this movie still hasn't gotten sequels. And I don't think it will at this
before
point.
This.
Yeah, I think it was the summer before.
Which is also
and then
underrated.
Elysium or whatever was right around there too.
Right.
Yeah.
And Chappie was the same year. Yeah, there was a lot of shit coming out.
I love Chappie.
To speak to the other movie, Source Code, I love Jake Gyllenhaal, but this ain't it.
This isn't the best Jake Gyllenhaal movie on this bracket.
This is Groundhog Day, but it's only 12 minutes, and you have to stop a train from derailing, and that's the entire movie. It's like a good idea for a short, and it's like in theory a good idea for an action movie, but it's like it's oddly too repetitive and not in the way they're intending. Like they play up the repetitiveness of like Tom Cruise just dying over and over again as a joke. And it's like he's progressing as a character and he's like dodging all these bullets like it's the Matrix because he's lived the same day over and over again. But in Source Code, it takes itself way too seriously for what it is. Like it's a B movie premise and they just are like, this is how it works. And it's like, bro, who cares?
Yeah, definitely Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat, whatever you want to call it.
I want to call it Edge of Tomorrow.
I want to call it Edge Lords of Tomorrow. All right. This is the Alden round.
Uh-oh.
We've got the 1962 Time Machine going up against like the 2002 Time Machine with Guy Pearce that we watched in a Mexican restaurant in Queens. Well, you guys did. My back was to the TV.
Yeah, that movie looked real bad.
It's bad.
That sucks because I love Guy Pearce, and like you could tell, like he's just like he never had his movie. Like Memento's like his movie, but he never had his
Iron
movie
Man 3
blockbuster wise. Yes, he's Kino in Iron Man 3.
Yeah. I've somehow accidentally seen most of his movies in the last month, and I don't know how, but it happened.
Yeah, Memento's awesome. Guy Pearce rocks in that movie. He's the best part. Like, he's so good in that movie.
Yeah.
He never had his, like, big blockbuster role like an A-list actor should have been. Sadly, I don't think he ever became an A-list actor. I think for, like, film fans, he's A-list, but he just never reached that blockbuster.
I just saw him in the new Tom Clancy movie.
Oh, he's in the Michael B. Jordan movie?
I was trying to remember it. Yeah, he's in there.
Damn.
Is he the villain?
Is he a third act villain again?
I don't want to spoil the movie.
I don't give a shit. I'm not watching it.
You shouldn't. He is. He's literally like a third act villain again.
He's Lotso Huggin' Bear.
He's getting typecasted as a third act villain for the rest of his career.
It's like hyper predictable. He's the villain from the start, but they try to play it that he's not. But
like Iron Man 3.
At least Iron Man 3, like, you can have fun with it.
Iron Man 3 is straight up live action syndrome.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, it really is. All right.
What was the other movie on?
It sounds like it's going to the original Time Machine here, the one that's a more close adaptation of the H.G. Wells novel, in that it's not close at all, but it's like a 60s budget science fiction movie.
Yeah.
It's going past the Guy Pearce one, but not by much. All right, up next, we've got Primer versus Paycheck. Now, I sent you guys... Both of these movies are about building a time machine and experimenting with it for the first time. Paycheck is based off of a book by the guy who did, like, Minority Report and Blade Runner. Have you guys seen the trailer? I sent it to you a while ago for Paycheck.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
That's with,
it's like...
Yeah.
Yes.
Ben Affleck, Uma Thurman, Eric Bana.
That was really
like, it's wild.
The thumbnail started moving, and it was just Ben Affleck yelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, Ben Affleck's commissioned to, like...
movie.
Yeah, it came out on Christmas Day, directed by John Woo, same guy as, like, Face Off. It's a wild action movie.
Ben Affleck.
So, like, Ben
Uma
Affleck,
Thurman.
he's hired to build a time machine by this company, and then they, like, give him all the resources and shit, and then wipe his brain. And then the government's like, how did you do this? And he's like, I don't know. You're going to have to reverse engineer it. So then, like, the company and the CIA are after Ben Affleck and Uma Thurman. It's wild, but it sucks. Primer rocks.
The cast is crazy.
The cast is... You got Aaron Eckhart, Paul Giamatti in the supporting cast.
You've got Michael C. Hall and Joe Morton, too.
It is the most 2003 movie ever made.
Well, judging by the trailer, it looks like it just absolutely sucks.
No, I mean, it rocks, but it's not a good movie.
Okay.
Future commentary track of Paycheck. We need to make that happen. That looks like a good one to do a commentary track for. But Primer, we talked about it last year on the sci-fi bracket. It gets a lot of love because it's a really, really small budget movie about these guys who pretty much end up creating like a time machine. And they create and establish a list of rules on how to use it. It's done for, like, no money. I think it was, like, they made it for, like, $200,000 or something. Like, Blair Witch Project level budget. And it's a pretty cool premise. It establishes the rules of how this machine works, and it follows all of them to a T. Extremely tight-written script, and it reminds me of something like Memento, but with more of, like, a science fiction edge and more of, like an element of, like, fantasy, and it's a cool movie. I definitely recommend checking that out too. But no, we're doing a commentary track of Paycheck. That shit looks awesome. All right, halfway through the first round. On the other side, this is the video game time travel round. We've got Prince of Persia up against Assassin's Creed. Gyllenhaal or Fassbender?
Oh, typically I'd say Fassbender, but I can't here. This movie, Assassin's Creed, is one of the few movies that I've just straight up not finished watching.
Prince of Persia: Sands of Time is kind of weird because why is Jake Gyllenhaal playing a Persian dude? Like Ben Kingsley, you get it. You're like, oh, okay, of course Ben Kingsley's playing a Persian dude because duh. But yeah, no, it's wild. But it's got cool little action set pieces. It reminds me very much of, like, a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Like, it's about on par with, like, On Stranger Tides or, like, the Lone Ranger movie. Like, there's some like, it's not a good adaptation of, like, the video game, but it's like a PlayStation 1 platforming game. Like, how are you really gonna make that a full-fledged movie? It tells the story, but it adds a lot, and there's, like, lore and stuff. It's entertaining. I would watch it.
Disney just really wanted another Pirates franchise. They tried a couple of times.
Yeah.
And this was a weird one for, like, the cast. It's just weird.
Yeah. I remember,
No, just Assassin's Creed sucks. Everything about it. Like, if you're trying to follow a franchise that has this much lore, and then you, like, implement this much of it and absolutely demolish the rest, like, it doesn't make any sense. The camera work was bad. Lighting in every single scene was horrendous. And he's just overacting for this like garbage movie.
I didn't understand like the yoga type shit either. That's not in the games. He's like practicing yoga while in the cerebral machine or the cerebral machine or whatever they call it. It's weird.
Yeah, gonna have to give it a Prince of Persia here.
Unfortunately,
I am too. This is a horror movie round in the time travel bracket. We've got the Ashton Kutcher movie, The Butterfly Effect, up against Happy Death Day.
This is a hot take, but Happy Death Day might be the one I'm going with.
I haven't seen it. Well, I can't say that. I have seen some of The Butterfly Effect, but I haven't seen Happy Death Day. But a lot of people keep telling me it's good.
Yeah, I had like no interest to like ever check out Happy Death Day.
Yeah.
And I think
Stromboli.
I don't remember if I saw it in theaters.
I didn't. I haven't seen it.
No, I'm trying to think. I don't know, but the movie itself, I mean, I think it's an entertaining watch.
Yeah.
As Groundhog, like Palm Springs, copies off of the Groundhog plot, but I think this one, it's just, it knows what it is. It's not like Palm Springs. I mean, it went to like film festivals and it like Andy Samberg's talking about how it's like his passion project. Happy Death Day, they knew exactly what they were making and just ran with it.
They even did really well with the trailer because it like did kind of seem interesting, but not enough for me to actually go see it in theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very self-aware. It's a slasher movie, but it's the same day every single day, and this girl is trying to figure out who's killing her every day. It's a good concept, and I like the sequel more. Happy Death Day to You is just like way more bonkers, and it's like a little funnier. But no, it's like, oh, let's make Groundhog Day a slasher movie, just like Freaky was like, let's make Freaky Friday a slasher movie. It's a good idea of flipping a concept for a movie on its head by making it a horror slasher film. Butterfly Effect's cool because it's got like the concept of like, oh, I'm gonna go back in time and change something, and the big thing is like how it affects them in the current timeline. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it's cool. It's like one of the most 90s movies I've ever seen. This is like Ashton Kutcher's breakout role. The acting's bad. I love Ashton Kutcher, but the acting's bad. And Happy Death Day to You, just everyone's playing into the typecast. Like it's a lot of fun. I'm with you, Josh.
I'm down for that.
All right, man. I wish Jory was here for this. We've got Army of Darkness up against Land of the Lost.
Yeesh.
I fucking hate Land of the Lost. I think it's one of the worst Will Ferrell movies, and a lot of people defend that shit. They're like, oh, it's funny.
Is it? So you think it's worse than Holmes and Watson?
It's not as bad, but it's same tier. Because like at least you got like Danny McBride, like you got other people in this. It's not like John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell being completely wasted in a terrible parody of Sherlock Holmes.
Not to be like too much on a tangent, but I actually enjoyed Holmes and Watson.
Bruh.
Yeah, I went with Steven, our S-tier guest that's never actually spoken on the podcast. Yeah, he didn't mind it at the time. I don't know what his feelings are, like, I guess 2 years later. But, yeah, I thought it was okay. It wasn't, like, a huge waste of my time, I don't think.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm going to go with Army of Darkness here. I think it's one of the best comedies. It's one of the best time travel comedies, and it's a sequel to The Evil Dead 1 and 2. It's wild. It's so wild. It's probably my favorite Sam Raimi movie. If I'm just going like based off of his like what makes Sam Raimi awesome in terms of like having characters that take themselves seriously but just absolutely absurd and hilarious like scenes and stuff. It's the best.
Yeah.
Up next we've got Looper versus 12 Monkeys.
Low flying plane.
Welcome to Orlando, home of low-flying planes.
I really like Looper.
Yeah, so I think this one is kind of difficult because Looper's good.
Yeah.
But, like, 12 Monkeys was good enough to also get, like, a series.
Ryan Johnson's never directed a bad movie.
Ryan Johnson is getting $460 million to make 2 sequels for Netflix.
Yeah, I haven't seen 12 Monkeys.
I like it a lot.
Fire alarm?
Oh, that's the fire alarm test.
Is that our building? It's off. Who cares?
Okay.
I think that 12 Monkeys is one of the best like Brad Pitt like movies. Like I think it's a really really solid time travel movie. It establishes its rules similar to Primer, and where like once it creates them, it follows them through. The Bruce Willis performance in 12 Monkeys is way better than the Bruce Willis performance in Looper. I also don't like the ending of Looper because it's like, oh, we're going to subvert your expectations, but I saw him shooting himself coming a mile away. Like, I thought it was happening in the first or second act. Like, I don't know.
You could tell in the trailer.
Uh-huh. I also just think it's a really weird choice to give Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, the makeup to try to look like a younger Bruce Willis. Like, we don't need that. Like, I appreciate the effort, but you could have just told me, oh, that's the younger version of him, and it's like, yeah, they're both white dudes. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Like,
Yeah,
I like 12 Monkeys more, personally. I think Looper's a little overrated.
I'm siding with 12 Monkeys.
All right, X-Men Days of Future Past, the best superhero movie of all time, and the movie that won the first season of our show, up against Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I think the time travel aspect of Endgame, I don't think is as cool as Days of Future Past. I mean, in Endgame, all they do is go back to past Marvel movies, and Days of Future Past, you have Wolverine interacting with the cast of First Class that was so beloved a movie before, and introduced Quicksilver. It was like we said before, it's like a prequel, sequel, reboot, all into one, and it wasn't a mess. It sucks that the X-Men franchise died a horrible death.
Hey, Apocalypse rocks.
I think Days of Future Past
fucking rocks.
But at least Days of Future Past gave X-Men Apocalypse and those movies a platform to try to continue the franchise.
To try.
I guess because of how they were trying to set up the time travel in Days of Future Past, it was good that they like made paradoxes and broke some rules for it so they could change the future they were in. But it's like Endgame does try to set up rules, then proceeds to break them, then sets up more that are just completely contrasting to the original, and then breaks those as well.
And don't get me wrong, Endgame has its fun moments when it comes to time travel. The two Captain America's fighting is pretty fun.
The Captain America's fighting is pretty good, and I think
Tony
Tony's
Stark
interaction with
seeing his dad is the best part of the whole movie, in my opinion.
Yes, it is. But it's with that one good scene or the two good scenes, it's not enough to compete with an interesting take like Days of Future Past.
They also went back to Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah.
That was a redeeming factor to that, but it wasn't.
I think what it comes down to is X-Men Apocalypse used its time travel premise to like grow and develop the characters, or to bring them together. Like, you understand like the relationship between Charles Xavier and Magneto way better after from First Class into Days of Future Past. But with Endgame, they like redo characters' arcs for no reason. Like, Thor learns the hero's journey and shit for the fourth time in 3 movies. It's
again.
Like, we don't need to keep seeing this happen. Like, Endgame just kind of does it so I think they can have that like paradox timeline of like, oh, well, Tony Stark has to give up his family in one line, his daughter, and like all of that to save the world. And it's a great way to end his character, but it hurts the rest of the cast. Like, it's already bad enough you had half of the cast of the last movie like die with the snap, but now you're like, oh, and then 5 years passes and all of Hawkeye's family's dead and he's in Japan killing people for money. It's like, this is not what this character would do in any situation. He wanted to retire before this. He would still retire. Like, it's weird.
And then both of these movies have really satisfying, wholesome endings. Like with Captain America's character going back in time, I think everybody wanted that ending for the character if that character was going to have an ending. But in Days of Future Past, I mean, Wolverine, he's back at the mansion. You see Jean Grey there, and then you see James Marsden as Cyclops, and it's like, yes, like Last Stand wasn't the last thing for this cast. We got to see them, like, even if it was for one scene, we got to see them all interact one more time, and it was a fitting ending to that era of X-Men.
Days of Future Past.
I don't think you'll ever see something like that again. Like, in terms of incorporating two chronologies of superhero casted characters. I guess they're trying to do this now, because they're trying to bring back Michael Keaton Batman for whatever the hell that movie's going to be.
And
for
the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe, I guess.
Yeah, whatever happened, no one knows. We'll see.
But Jory's 100% right that Days of Future Past was ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I really, really like the Kennedy assassination. Why would you incorporate that in the movie?
He was one
That's so fucking bold. It's too based. It really is.
That could have been a spin-off all on its own.
Yeah.
That was so wild. Like, why did it feel the need to go there?
Yeah, I was just like, are they, like, Magneto prequel baiting here? What is going on?
Yeah.
Are we getting a JFK mutant movie? That would be wild if they were like, oh, no, this is actually connected to Oliver Stone's JFK. Like, Kevin Costner shows up.
Oh, man.
All right, up next. This is an interesting one. We've got Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, going up against Back to the Future, a movie that Alden thinks sucks.
I was about to say, Alden, you have the floor here.
There's not much I can say. I know you guys are picking Back to the Future, and that's okay. I think, like, in terms of time travel, it does do stuff better than Austin Powers. So I don't have a huge argument here other than I prefer watching Austin Powers, obviously.
Is this the first Austin Powers movie?
Second. International Man of Mystery is the first one. Spy Who Shagged Me is the good one, and then there's Goldmember.
I mean, I like all three of the movies. I think the second one is the best one.
It has all the stuff that you remember from watching those movies, besides the like parody Hollywood reboot of the Austin Powers movie in the beginning of Goldmember. That's the best part of that movie. But everything, like Mini-Me's not in International Man of Mystery. Fat Bastard's not in International Man of Mystery. All of these like extra Mike Myers characters all show up in Spy Who Shagged Me, and it rocks. And then the ending is wild, where fucking Seth Green finds out on the Maury show that Dr. Evil's his father. It's so weird. Scott Evil.
Yeah.
Scott Evil. Yeah. It's these are really tough movies to compare. I think if we had like Austin Powers against like Bill and Ted, that would be an interesting comparison.
Closer,
But also like Back to the Future we talked about before recording, it has a lot of humor that we kind of forget about, even in its time travel when Marty first goes back to the 50s, and he goes through that like farm, and the family thinks it's like aliens.
Yeah.
The father's got like the shotgun ready to go.
I do find it really funny, like the whole DeLorean time machine stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love spoof movies. Like, I think the Austin Powers movies, like, parodying James Bond and poking fun at those tropes is awesome. But it doesn't compare to... Back to the Future is kind of like one of the most original... Well, not like original, because it's borrowing a lot of elements from other, like, science fiction things. But it's, like, one of the great blockbusters, I think, of all time. Like... everyone's parents, everyone, like, it's one of the most crowd-pleasing movies. Yes, Josh, I use the word crowd-pleasing. One of the most crowd-pleasing movies, I think, out there. I think there's, like, if you didn't grow up watching them, I could see people not liking them. I think that there are people that could just be like, it's not for me. But I think in general, if you were to turn these movies on, more people would be like, oh, yeah, let's watch Back to the Future. They would probably turn off Spy Who Shagged Me halfway through, or not barely pay attention to it. We've got Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure going up against Hot Tub Time Machine. Both time travel comedies.
Yeah.
I really want to vote
funny.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
I want to vote Hot Tub Time Machine
for the
too.
meme, but I can't. I mean, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, even though I think the sequel is awesome, I still really like this movie. If we're talking about like what's like accessible to like pop culture. I mean, this movie's like shown like in schools, and it's a fun thing that could be, I guess, educational. And at the same time, I mean, it's Bill and Ted. It's two of the most like two of the greatest like duos in film history. They're so entertaining.
I gotta start with, I've not seen this in school.
I watched it in 7th grade social studies class for some reason.
What?
It's a good movie, though. I do think the sequel's better, but to me, like, Excellent Adventure is, like, it's kind of like a budget Back to the Future in a way, where it's just like, yeah, we're giving these two goofballs unlimited power. They can just go and time travel and do the things that they need. But, like, it's a good movie, and it's still funny. There's bits of it that are hilarious. Still to this day, like I love that where Napoleon is just going to the water park and he's like barely tall enough to ride the slides. Like there's a lot of humor there. It's very historically inaccurate, but who cares? It's a movie that has fun with its premise all the way through. Where like Hot Tub Time Machine, it does have like a fun premise. It's like, oh, we're going back to the 80s, and this was before like the back to the 80s trend was like a thing. And it's funny, but it's like also it takes itself too seriously and like sets up this like John Cusack's trying to get his wife back, and it's like we don't need all this like melodrama. Like just do a like crazy comedy where they go back to the 80s or whatever. And then Hot Tub Time Machine 2 sucks.
The cast were guest hosts on Monday Night Raw.
That does not surprise me.
But yeah, definitely Bill and Ted here.
It's gotta be.
Oh boy.
All right, this one's gonna get weird. We've got Project Almanac going up against Donnie Darko.
I've seen both of these movies.
Project Almanac is like a found footage time travel movie. It's very much like Chronicle, but instead of telekinesis, this kid has the ability to time travel.
Yeah, I remember the trailers for this movie and being like, oh, it's probably like another Chronicle. I'll see this. And I went in and I'm like, this wasn't that good. And it's fine. I think it's got its cool moments. It just feels like a movie that could have been made it seems so low budget for it to have a wide release, like in a theatrical run. Yeah. And maybe that's why I expected more. Maybe if I thought it was just like this little like indie like student film, because that's what it kind of feels like. Yeah, it's got like effects of like a major motion picture, but you take that away, it's a very like simple like script that I could see like being like somebody's like dare I say project.
I understand Palm Springs, like that was Andy Samberg's passion project. He's like, I want to make a movie where like I'm the vehicle of a Groundhog Day type movie, and like okay, that totally works. Project Almanac to me feels like a studio move to like try to do the next Chronicle. Like it oddly feels calculated for something that's supposed to be very like it should feel organic to some capacity, and I think that's why Chronicle works. Is like, sure, Max Landis was like an industry plant, and Josh Trank, like he was the director, but like it still felt like these guys, they went to school together and they like wanted to make this movie. They wrote a good script and they were like, yeah, screw it, we're just gonna do a superhero movie that takes place in real life and it's very grounded, and
it works.
Yeah, and I don't know if Project Almanac was the same case. Maybe it was someone's like passion project and it just got studio backing. But to me, it just feels like the studio was like, yeah, Chronicle made money. It was pretty cheap. We can do something like that. I do like the butterfly effect elements, but seeing the main kid go evil is kind of cringe in this movie, in my opinion. Donnie Darko is a cult classic, and it's getting better with time, like as time goes on.
Yeah, like
fuck the director's cut though. Hate the director's cut.
The director of Project Almanac directed the 2017 Power Rangers movie.
I did know that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
how many writers did Project Almanac have?
Two writers. It had a $12 million budget and made $33.2 million. It was a January movie.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it is.
Huge January.
It was.
Produced
I saw
by
it in
Michael.
theaters.
Produced by Michael Bay. That's why it got a wide release.
There it is.
And $12 million is a very low budget for something like that, too. I mean, that's like a horror movie. That's probably close to the same budget as like a Happy Death Day. Donnie Darko definitely has that passion project feel to it. I mean, I think it's a tight script. I think it's dark and kind of like gothic, and like I understand like the Hot Topic phenomenon with like Donnie Darko, and I think why it's like kind of cringe or whatever. But you want to talk about movies that did the whole like, oh, it's set in the 80s thing. This did it like a decade after the 80s ended. This is like early 2000s. Let's do it. Soundtrack's awesome. Patrick Swayze's good in this movie.
He's
Jake
awesome
Gyllenhaal's breakout role. Yeah, this movie rocks. I love Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
One of those movies that made me want to get into making movies, which I know is cringe, and like every 11-year-old sees it once and they're like, this is so deep. That's literally me.
Yeah,
I
heard
I've been there.
I heard people that went to film school when this movie came out. They came out of film school hating this movie because that's all other students talked about.
I wouldn't
doubt
it. There's a really funny meme. It was like how they filmed Donnie Darko, and it was like a camcorder, and then it just had like a bowl of marijuana in it. It was like, yeah, no, I like that movie a lot. I really do. The sequel is horrible. Never watch S. Darko.
The all around me are familiar faces scene is very memed upon now, though.
All right, so here we go. We're through the first round. We're gonna do a speed round now. Gotta go for the gut instincts here. Ready? Groundhog Day going up against Back to the Past, Blast from the Past. Ready? 3, 2, 1. It's Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
I love you, Blast from the Past, but you're barely a time travel. In fact, you're not a time travel movie. You're only on here because I wanted to talk about how awesome Brendan Fraser is, and I cannot wait to talk about Looney Tunes back in action. All right, Men in Black 3 versus Interstellar. Ready? 3, 2, 1. It's Men in Black 3. All right, Josh, it's up to you. Men in Black 3 or Interstellar?
I thought Nate was just going to vote different. Interstellar.
These are weird.
I think I have to go with Interstellar.
Pathetic.
I think I do.
That's fine. That's the safe pick. It's definitely the better made movie.
If I pick MI3, it might win the bracket. So
that's why I picked Interstellar.
All right, we got Terminator up against Edge of Tomorrow. Ready? 3, 2, 1. It's Terminator.
Terminator.
The Time Machine, 1962, up against Primer. 3, 2, 1. It's Primer.
The Time Machine.
Primer?
I guess I was a boomer there.
That's fine, though. Like, it's a good movie to pick.
I think it's the only movie in this bracket I have not seen, so... I've probably caught like 5 minutes of it on TV, but I don't think I've seen it. All right, Prince of Persia versus Happy Death Day. 3, 2, 1.
Happy Death Day?
All right, Army of Darkness up against 12 Monkeys. 3, 2, 1.
Army of Darkness.
Damn. This is hard.
Yeah.
Like, Army of Darkness is wildly more entertaining, but in terms of being a time travel movie, 12 Monkeys is really good at what it does. I'm going to have to go with 12 Monkeys here. X-Men Days of Future Past versus Back to the Future. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Back to the Future. No.
No. God, this would have been a bloodbath if we did this a year ago.
Yeah.
All right, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure versus Donnie Darko. 3, 2, 1.
Donnie Darko. Next round of that is going to be...
Oh, yeah.
Shit's about to get cringe, boys. All right, we're in the Elite Eight. We've got Groundhog Day, Interstellar, Terminator, Primer, Happy Death Day, 12 Monkeys, Back to the Future, and Donnie Darko left. I think this is a pretty good top 8 for this.
Yeah. We did well.
Would have loved to have seen Men in Black 3 in here, but, you know, it's okay. You win some, you lose some. Man, Groundhog Day versus Interstellar. This is weird. So you've got, like, low stakes, low scope time travel, and then probably the highest scale, most realistic time travel put to film.
Literally saving a whole generation of people.
Saving the species versus getting stuck in Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Alden, why is it better than Groundhog Day?
Alright. I think even trying to watch Groundhog Day maybe once a year on Groundhog Day or sometime is just too frequent to watch it.
I agree.
It's great. I have a good time watching it, but it's just, I don't find that it has it's not that lasting for me. It's once you see it maybe twice, I feel like you've seen it enough. Whereas like Interstellar, you can keep rewatching it if you want to, and there's a new aspect you'll catch on to every single time. You'll start finding something new to just ponder over or try and follow throughout the story. And like until the third act, it's really easy to follow, really I guess a good teacher of the physics behind what they're trying to accomplish. And Groundhog Day just repeats the same day, so...
But, I mean, look how many other movies there were just in this bracket that do Groundhog Day again, but add a twist, or just do Groundhog Day again or Palm Springs. You know, it's like, there's...
Yeah.
It's such a good idea, and it's so unique that it almost is its own subgenre. Whereas, like, Interstellar, to me, is a really, really good, like, science fiction, like, movie. A science fiction drama. It's a pretty good take on, like, using the science and knowledge that we have today to tell, like, a relatively convincing story for the first two acts. But, I would rather watch Groundhog Day, like, every day of the week.
My view on this, these are, once again, just like the last round with Interstellar, these are two movies that are hard to judge.
Yeah.
I think Bill Murray is pretty great in the role.
Yes.
And I think it's very it's such a entertaining movie, and I think anybody could watch that and get enjoyment out of it.
In theory, you are right.
I love how much of an asshole he is. Like, it's one of those movies where you believe the transition of the character. Because, like, he starts off so shitty, he's just a dickhead to everyone. Then he's, like, living the same day over and over again, and he's still, like... He's like, well, I'm just going to be worse then. He's like, I'm literally ruining everyone's day every day, and it's the same day. But then you get to the point where he gets so annoyed, he tries to kill himself. Like, that montage is insane. It's just like him, like, yeah, I'm throwing myself off this building. I'm driving this car into a train. Like, he's just like... But by the end of it, you understand. He's like, okay, well, maybe if I just be a better person, I can fix all of it. And he's trying to save the homeless guy. He's catching the kid falling from the tree, learns piano lessons. And I think it's a little trite that it's all to impress a girl or whatever. Like, I think that is kind of where it's sad. But, like, the messaging and the psychology behind having to deal with the struggle of living the same day every day, I think it's one of Bill Murray's best performances. I really do. You see the full arc in, like, the breaking down of a dickhead. Like, he goes from being a total asshole to a redeemed person by the end of the movie, and I totally buy it. And it doesn't have faith or spirituality or any, like, themes of that. It's literally just an agnostic look at the world. And I think that's really unique. Especially for its time. Like, today, it has, like, the philosophy of, like, I think, like, it's a very Gen Z movie. Like, I see what the push to do a Palm Springs.
Like, even, like, going on the other side, McConaughey's performance in Interstellar is great. Him... Anne
Hathaway's
crying. There. And Anne Hathaway is there. And then, dare I say, Matt Damon shows up and causes a bro moment in the movie. The cast is a mixed bag, I think, for Interstellar, legit. Even though everybody in the cast are actors that I like, they're either having a really weird performance or they're screwing up the plot. Unless you're Matthew McConaughey, because I think Matthew McConaughey is really good in the film. And that scene where Michael Caine's dying, I still don't know what he says in that scene.
I had to watch it with subtitles. Like the third time I saw the movie, I was like, "What is he even saying?" I can't remember. I think this is the first Nolan movie to have like the problems that a lot of people have with them in terms of just like the sound design is not what it needs to be. It is for the space scenes, like that shit rocks.
Yeah,
but you don't need Hans Zimmer pounding notes on an organ while the fucking old dude's dying. Like, hello, what are we doing here?
Yeah, this is a tough fight, but at the same time, as many negatives Interstellar has, it does have a lot of positives. I think it's really cool that this day and age we still had a movie like Interstellar. I don't think it's as like unique as say a 2001 Space Odyssey, but I think it's really cool Nolan gave that type of subgenre a shot.
And the world building for it, the state that the Earth is in, and like the hints towards like half of civilization being bombed, it's crazy. Just the setup just to get them to space.
Yeah, it's a bra moment when Damon shows up, but the movie picks back up when Topher Grace shows up.
And Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
And he's older Timothy Chalamet. Timothy Chalamet is gonna turn into Casey Affleck.
Is that
sorry to hear that?
We've been bullying Interstellar throughout this entire year of the show. I'm gonna give it to Interstellar.
Well, there's so many aspects to the time travel in Interstellar too. So it's just like they repeat or many different forms of time travel.
I'm pissed. All right, Terminator versus fight. Primer.
I think Terminator.
I mean, I love Primer, and I think like the whole like point of Primer, I think, is to do something that's like really grounded, really small scale sci-fi, and I think that's cool. But Terminator kind of also did that, and then launched a franchise, and I don't know. Terminator's awesome. I think it's one of the best 80s movies, period. So
yeah.
Happy Death Day versus 12 Monkeys. This is like the quadrant that I just don't really give a fuck about. Like,
yeah. I kind of want to give it the Happy Death Day.
Like, I like 12 Monkeys, but it's not one of those movies I could watch every day. Happy Death Day is a stupid enough movie where it's like I could turn that on with friends just about any day. Like, you know, we're just like, oh, let's watch a dumb slasher movie, and it's funny, and like everyone's gonna laugh and get along. Like,
and we don't get like
12 Monkeys. I'd have to explain things to people. Like, I don't want to do that.
We don't get funny slasher movies anymore.
You don't really get slasher movies unless they're trying to reinvent the slasher genre, like Freaky or this, where they just flip it on its head.
The closest thing is like Halloween 2019, but it still doesn't have like the quirky 80s like humor that Happy Death Day somehow had, but the Halloween movie couldn't.
Yeah.
But it had some straight up hilarious scenes where the little kid is like that little kid steals the fucking movie when he's there. The fucking boyfriend gets killed, he's like, "Oh hell no," and just runs away. Yeah. No, I think you kind of need a little bit of humor to make a slasher movie work. Like, I think that's why the Scream movies are so good, specifically the first one, is it balances like a mystery and a horror film, but also a meta self-commentary on, you know, shitty slashers of the 90s. Yeah,
need a little bit of humor
Happy
to make a time travel movie work.
That's fine.
True.
Sorry,
speaking of...
Oh no.
Back to the Future versus Donnie Darko. How edgy are we getting?
Retract what I said, because I know I'm wearing a Back to the Future shirt.
Oh my god.
But
is Donnie Darko it's a time travel movie, but is it really a time travel movie?
I think both of these movies are actually similar when it comes to in Donnie Darko's kind of like if Marty's dad was the main character, like in the sense we're not following the person that's time traveling, which I think is a cool take on that genre. It's weird because it's like both character and supporting character want an end goal where like they want the character to do something. Like they need Jake Gyllenhaal to do something in Donnie Darko, and then in Back to the Future, they need Marty's dad to dance at the prom or whatever. And Back to the Future, I mean, it's iconic. I mean, it's one of the greatest films of all time, no matter what Alden will say on the show.
No, I can't disagree with that. Like, that is the case. It sets up so much in pop culture. It's incredible how beloved it is.
But as a movie, Donnie Darko is also fantastic. Like, I think we're dealing with two S-tier movies.
Yeah, I think you're right that we're dealing with like two high-tier movies here. I just feel like I loved when I thought that the only Back to the Future movie was the first one, even though it ends with "to be continued" or whatever, and like very obvious sequel bait, especially for its time. I don't really gel with either sequels. Like, I think the second one's overrated, and I think the third one's like fine, but whatever, screw it. We're having a hot take. Donnie Darko's going over.
Awesome.
Alden, you did it.
I did it. I didn't even say anything.
He didn't even see Donnie Darko.
Oh, that's also true.
Damn. You would like the movie, Alden. You really would.
Yeah.
I know.
I probably think it's a little angsty,
like,
but
that's fine. This is a weird
Final Four.
This is not going to go the way I think. All right. Final Four.
Probably
We've got
not.
Interstellar, Terminator, Happy Death Day, and Donnie Darko. I'm sorry, guys. I can't go on with this Interstellar agenda any longer.
I don't know if I can either.
Against Terminator?
I
Alden, you're going to have to really win me over here.
There is not a single scene of fat in Terminator. Everything is cut and dry. It moves from point A to point B so well. It establishes every character you need to know. It builds this world and this lore and this robot apocalypse in the future. It plants the seeds for Skynet. It does so much in one movie. And then, and it's like 90 minutes long. There's a whole hour of Interstellar that I think should be cut out. You don't need the Dr. Mann shit at all. The ending is stupid. I like it, but it's stupid. For a movie that takes itself extremely serious for like 2 acts to then just kind of jump the shark in the third is it's just odd. It's such a weird movie.
I think if Terminator 2 made it out of this section, I think I'd kind of be with you, Alden, with an argument, because I think the time travel in Interstellar is better than T2's when it came to like progressing the plot. The T2 time travel just kind of stops for 2 acts, and it's an action movie, which is fine. It's great.
Yeah.
But Terminator, the time travel and the implications of that movie affect the entire movie. And so does Interstellar, but I think Terminator just does it better.
Well, I mean, there's a huge difference between going back in time and then going forward in time at different rates. Like, you go back in time, you can change the future like they're trying to do. But with Interstellar, they have to be very careful with how much time they spend doing what they're doing. Like, they were on that planet for 50 years. His daughter finally figures out how to get off of Earth, like, efficiently, and then she goes to bed for however long he was trying to get back. So it's just, I don't find these to be easily comparable. I can't make an argument to sway you to Interstellar because of that. I think both of these handle their time travel pretty well, but it's just like they go opposite directions.
The point I'll give you, Alden, is I agree that Interstellar is hard to compare to every other movie on here. It is one of the most unique movies, science fiction movies, time travel movies, otherwise. It's one of the most unique movies. The only real thing you could compare it to in terms of its scope would be something like 2001, but that's merely in its aesthetics and its presentation. It has nothing to do with each other plot-wise or anything like that. That being said, I think this is kind of like a Groundhog Day scenario where it's like Terminator inspired so many more things. Like, way more time travel movies came out after Terminator than there were like before. Before, you just had kind of like your schlocky kind of campy stuff with like the time machine and like borrowing from like H.G. Wells and stuff, and then you probably had a little bit with like the Planet of the Apes sequels where there's time travel and stuff like that. It was kind of just like a hokey kind of like, oh, we can do like a a Twilight Zone episode with some time travel. It wasn't like we're gonna build an entire movie around a time travel premise.
Where's Escape from the Planet of the Apes? Because that would make my final four.
Of course, it would make your final four. I think it has to be Terminator here. Like I said, the pacing, there's not a single thing I'd cut from this movie. There's a lot I would cut from Interstellar. I think within Interstellar, there's a masterpiece. There's a literal 9 or 10 out of 10 movie. But there's so much that doesn't need to be there, and then there's just... I want a little bit more at the end. Like, I want to see Jessica Chastain's character fucking save the planet. That's the whole point of the movie.
Yeah,
and that gets blown away by the fucking bookshelf
70%
shit.
of the Dr. Mann stuff and replaced it with her.
And, like, it seems like... I'm not, like, trying to talk shit on Interstellar, but if we're talking about inspiration, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, Interstellar just kind of had inspiration for future Nolan movies, and sometimes the negatives from Interstellar has continued on, like the weird sound design, the overuse of a score, but there are some positives too. I think Christopher Nolan, right after this, he made Dunkirk. I think the cinematography of Interstellar laid the foundation, and he made it an incredibly great looking movie like Dunkirk. Or even in Tenet, it's the little action we saw in Interstellar, we saw elevated in Tenet.
And even though the mixing is kind of like a bruh moment for Interstellar, the score reinvents how the organ is used. The organ beforehand was always used for like horror or church-related stuff, and now it's used in multiple sci-fi properties. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but Davy Jones did that better.
Yeah, no, the organ's been used in Star Wars, like 2001.
Davy Jones.
Yeah, but not in the same capacity, because it's always like a darker note to it.
Yeah, I mean, it uses the organ as like a rhythm instrument in terms of like establishing a pace and a rhythm instead of just a note or a melody.
But maybe, I don't know, maybe people view the movie different, but I see the organ as the darker tone of the movie because they're in space, and space is kind of like the antagonist of this movie. Time and space is what they're fighting against in this movie.
Yeah. And I mean, until Dr. Mann, you're right.
Until Dr. Mann. That's why this movie could have worked. They didn't need an actual physical antagonist.
It still would have been better if there was only like a few minutes of him rather than the entire act.
It's yeah, I mean, and when you first see Matt Damon, like, it's a really cool moment because you're like, Matt Damon's in this movie.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, and then the planet they're on is interesting and stuff, but I like the sequences that happen. They're visually pleasing, but they take away.
I love the visuals of Interstellar. I think it's the best looking Nolan movie by a lot, actually. I think everything it does with practical effects and visual effects, even the sound design is awesome. I think the mixing's weird, but no, I think it's a very, very, very good movie that could have been a masterpiece. And I think Terminator, for what it is of being a relatively small-scale thriller and science fiction movie, it just does everything right. I don't normally say, like, there's perfect movies, but, like, you can't change anything about the original Terminator. The reason why we keep getting sequels and reboots that don't work is because there's a love for this movie so much. Like, there's so much potential in what we see in this movie.
The 80s were, like, a big year for, like, pop culture and that, and I could firmly, like, feel like I could debate and say that the first Terminator is in the top 10 films of the 80s.
Yeah, it's up there. It's up there with, like, Amadeus and Brazil for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alden. Interstellar, Final Four. That's pretty good.
It made a run.
Better than I thought. I literally thought it would be out in the first round. So, you know. Bravo. Up next, Happy Death Day versus Donnie Darko. This is getting weird.
Alden wants to debate Happy Death Day here.
I'm not debating it. I'm just picking it.
No,
No, because I haven't seen either of these. I don't know what you want from me. Both of you have put up like great arguments for the two of these movies against other things, so I need to hear some more.
I don't want to argue for Happy Death Day, though. I'm agreeing with Nate. But you can sway me if I hear a good take for it.
It's not happening. All right.
What can I say? I'll just watch the trailer and go off that.
According to us, the three of us, the two best time travel movies are Terminator and Donnie Darko.
I like this top two because you have one time travel movie that's very experimental, not for everyone when it comes to like I guess like the general audience, and then you have Terminator, one of the biggest franchises in film history.
Like going punch for punch here, again, I think that Terminator is a perfectly serviceable blockbuster. I think it's a perfectly serviceable, scaled down movie. I think because people like would not like, I think there's a good amount of people that would just not like Donnie Darko. It's like I kind of just want to lean with like what I think the popular opinion here is and just go with Terminator, because again, there's not anything in the movie that I think needs to be changed. And I agree that Donnie Darko didn't need to be changed either, but they've George Lucas the shit out of this movie, and the director's cut is horrible. It actually like it brings the movie down like a whole star for me. Like it takes it to the visual effects don't look great, but I don't think they needed to look great. And I think like Donnie Darko's pretty serviceable. I think it's a good story. I think it has a unique twist. I think it's like environment, and it's like it's got the 80s down to a T. It's got the environment. It's got a great cast. Man, actually, damn, this is hard.
You're right, and like I mean, we didn't really talk about, I guess we did with Bill and Ted and Back to the Future, the way the time travel's presented visually. Donnie Darko doesn't really have any of that. Terminator, of course, does, where you first see Arnold we first see first, right? Beam into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to rank James Cameron movies in the end of July. That's gonna be a good. It's going to be a good ranking. For now, my vote has to go to Terminator. I don't think it could be Donnie Darko. Thank you, everyone, for watching today's episode of Duel of the Takes. Sorry that Josh and Alden's video cut out here at the end, but yeah.